Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good.
Hi,
Hello.
Hello.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Hi,
All right.
Brittany.
Hi.
How are you?
I, I'm doing good. I sent an email
I saw.
recently.
All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Elizabeth. I'm a bookseller at Belmont Books in Belmont, Massachusetts. We are not far from Boston, very, very close. Um, Before we begin, just a few things. So this is not the only event that we have this month. We have events virtual events all the time and have started to do in person again. Um, our next event is an in-store talk between Julia Glass and Jessica Treadway. Then we also next week have a virtual summer mystery panel. You can sign up for those kind of events on our website, belmontbooks.com. This weekend, if you're in town, we also have our fifth birthday party, which is incredibly exciting. Um, so the way is going to work over the next hour, I'm going to give a brief introduction to the author and the illustrator. But before I do that, just want to mention that if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box. I'll also check the chat. And then at 7:45, after after they've had a chance to talk to each other, we'll open it up to questions. And so at that point, I will start relaying some of the things that you ask. And so, yeah, now just for the introductions. So Carrie Finison writes and develops fiction and nonfiction writing for educational textbook and assessment publishers. Her work includes Dozens of Donuts, Don't Hug Doug, and Pigs Dig a Road. Brittany Jackson, or B, as she's better known, loves telling stories through her art, from dynamic and diverse character design to delightfully fun and energetic children's book illustrations. She attended the College for Creative Studies and was the grand prize winner of the L. Ron Hubbard's Illustrator of the Future Award in 2007. Her debut illustrated picture book is the New York Times bestseller Parker Looks Up, published by Aladdin Books. Now I'm going to turn my camera off and let the two of you do the talking. And yep, at 7:45, I'll come back on.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm really excited about this. Uh, this is my third picture book that has come out and my third book launch, virtual book launch with Belmont Books. Someday I'll get an in-person book launch, but I'm very glad that this is virtual as I'm recovering from COVID right now myself. So that worked out. um, so I think what I'll do is share my screen and start with the story in just a minute. But I was wondering, first of all, um, if people could share in the chat. I've been asking people to share sort of what your sibling configuration is. Do you have sisters? Do you have brothers? Um, and things like that. And then the other thing I wanted to know is, do you remember anything that you used to argue with your sibling about? Um, in this story, Lulu and Zoey, one of the things their argument starts over is a fancy pen like this. And I remember arguing with my sister Maria, who's here, over who got to sit in the front seat of the car. This was back in the day when kids could ride wherever. And we would argue over the front seat. Um, I know my kids would sometimes argue over who gets to push the elevator buttons. So whatever like sort of petty, dumb thing that you've argued about, I'd love to hear it in the chat. Let it all out. Oh, hi, Miranda. Good to see you. My niece is here. That's nice. Hi, Carol. Yes. Argued about everything. Yeah. Yes. Lulu and Zoey. So Lulu and Zoey are a pair of sisters who also tend to argue about a lot of things, which we'll see in the story. B, we really didn't talk about how we're going to read this. Do you want to like go page by page and just alternate? Do you want to do that?
I've never really been good at the reading part.
You want me to
I'm
do
pretty
it?
shy online, so
Okay. I'll
yeah.
read. I'll read, and you can chime in if you have anything to add. So, my mom says they argued over which side of the room, who chooses the TV show to watch as a family. Yes, that's a big one. Vivian says they argued over clothes. Yeah. Yeah, hand-me-downs. Oh, so many things to argue about. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Hold on one second. Let me fix this. Okay. All right. So, can everyone see that? Hopefully you can see that. I actually can't see the chat anymore, but B, you can see that, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is the story. I put our social media info there if anybody wants to follow us on social media, or if you're not on social media, I wholeheartedly applaud that. You can check us out at our websites. And let's begin. So this is the title page of the story. And there's Lulu and Zoey. And here we go. Here's the dedication. So I had dedicated it to my sisters, and I'll talk a little bit later about the inspiration for the story. And we'll start. Sometimes Lulu wants to play, but Zoey doesn't. Not today. Sometimes Zoey hides her book when Lulu only wants to look. Sometimes Zoey has the best. Here where we come in with this special pen. Sometimes Lulu grabs the rest. Sometimes Zoey tries to share, and that's when Lulu won't play fair. Sometimes Lulu decorates, and that's what Zoey really hates. I think Lulu was trying to help her sister out there by maybe decorating the cover of her notebook a little bit, but Zoey did not appreciate that. Sometimes sisters play too rough. Then Aunt Eliza says, "Enough." Sometimes angry sisters shout and stomp and slam and sulk and pout. Sometimes sisters, each alone, enjoy the quiet on their own. They draw, they paint, they rest, they write until they both forget the fight. Sometimes sisters open doors to share their dreams of distant shores. And then they write and illustrate a story that they both create of mermaid friends, dolphin flips, and sunken pirate treasure ships. Sometimes Lulu adds some art, but doesn't draw on Zoey's part. Sometimes Zoey adds a line and Lulu doesn't say, "That's mine." They still have chapter 2 to make, but first they take a cookie break. Sometimes sisters grab the best, break off half, and share the rest. Sometimes they fight, sometimes they're friends. A sister story never ends. Always sisters have each other, and sometimes sisters have another. And so now we see why Aunt Eliza was there hanging out with them, because their parents were off, maybe at the hospital with their new baby sister. And there they all are at the end, enjoying each other's company. So, okay. So, this is just a picture. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I was inspired to write the story. This is just a picture of where I write. This is like the desk that I sit at, and this is actually where I'm sitting right now. And then these are some of the things that I like to have as treats. I like tea. I like oatmeal cookies because writing is really hard. Revising is hard. So I always tell, when I talk to kids in school visits, I talk about the fact that like we need to give ourselves breaks and we need to have some treats at our side when we do these things. So let's see. So a lot of times, people ask, like, where did you get the idea for this book? And with a lot of my stories, it's very much like all over the place, or it just popped into my head, or I can't, it's hard to even explain exactly where it came from. But with this story, I actually do remember the exact moment when I came up with the story idea. And it was when my son, Eben, was about 4, and my daughter, Mia, was about 1. And so here they are at those ages. And we had gone to pick up my son from preschool, and we were riding home, and Mia in the back seat was kind of talking and sort of like baby talk, but very loudly, singing and just making a lot of sort of loud sounds. And Eben really didn't love that. And so he said, "She's always so loud. She's always so loud." And I gave a very, probably annoying parental response, which was that she's not always that way. She's sometimes loud, but she is also sometimes quiet. And so then we, all the way home, started making a list of the things that sometimes sisters are this way, but sometimes they're also this maybe opposite way. And sometimes they do things that are annoying, and sometimes they do things that are nice or friendly. And so when we got home, we had this sort of list of things. And so I wrote it down. I started writing it down, and I started working on it as a poem. And I also thought back to my own past and my sisters, and sort of some of the things that I remembered from our different relationships. And so this is a picture of me with my sister Maria. I was about 5 when she was born. So here we are when she was a baby, and then playing together. But we also did used to argue together over the front seat, as I mentioned. That was a big one. We also used to argue over who would hang up a particular Christmas ornament on the tree. I feel like we might have even recently had that argument not so long ago. So we grew up together. And then when we got older, my dad, who had remarried, and my stepmother had a baby girl Carlie. And so this is Carlie when she was little. And there we are with her. And I was about 23 when Carlie was born. So there's Maria and I with Carlie. And there we are growing up. While she was growing up, it was fun to watch her growing up. I have to say, I did not have the same kind of petty arguments with Carlie as I did with Maria. I think maybe the age difference helped there quite a bit. But now she's all grown up, and it's very fun to enjoy each other's company. And so I thought about all of those things and the things that we had fun doing together and maybe the things we disagreed about. And so I came up, this was the very first draft of this story that I wrote in 2010. So as we know, it is now 2022, right? So this is sort of, gives you sort of a short sense of how long sometimes it takes to actually develop a story from the very beginning seeds of it all the way through. So I'll just read the very beginning part. It was called Sometimes Sisters. And it says, sometimes sisters sing too loud. Sometimes sisters act too proud. Sometimes sisters play too rough. Sometimes sisters take your stuff. Sometimes sisters scream and shout. Sometimes sisters sulk and pout. Sometimes sisters stomp the floor. Sometimes sisters slam the door. Sometimes sisters dress up frilly. Sometimes sisters just act silly. Sometimes sisters make you laugh. Sometimes sisters share their half. And it kind of went on from there. And so, you know, at that point, I hadn't even really started writing picture books yet. So I put it away for a long time. And when I took it back out again, I thought I would really like to develop this into a picture book story, but it needs more of it needs some actual like characters to hang on to. And so that's when I kind of came up with the characters of these two sisters. And that there was some actual plot taking place. It wasn't just sort of a random list of things that sisters sometimes are. And so that was sort of the development of that. And then so I wrote lots of drafts and I shared it with my critique partners, some of whom are here tonight. And then at some point I sent it to my agent, and she sent it out to publishers, and a publisher picked it up. And that is when B took over. So I'm going to hand it over to her for a moment to talk about her part. And I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen. Carlie says we never had any arguments. I don't know if that's true. But I was certainly more mature. Oh, B, I think you're muted.
Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you. I might have you share your screen because I don't have the PDF on this computer.
Oh, okay. You want me to share that? Let me open that up. Hold on one second.
Yeah, you could just move through the slides, but
sure.
I can tell a little bit about what inspired me to take the story, because what inspired me to take the story, because I do have a sister of my own, and we fight a lot. We still kind of fight to this day, but like I know how to not get into it with her. You know, we know each other's boundaries at this point. But I was the little sister. I would have been Lulu, and I think I annoyed my sister a lot more than Lulu actually annoyed Zoey. So like I was always a very creative kid. So like I would see different things that I wanted to do. Like I had my Barbies and I wanted to dress my Barbies up in clothes, but my mother really couldn't afford to buy me a lot of the Barbie clothes. So I would take my sister's socks or her jeans and I would cut them up to make outfits for my Barbies. So every now and again, my sister would go into her wardrobe and find holes in her clothes. And that resulted in a lot of arguments and fights. Um, and I would be like the one that would take her things and just like do creative things with it, which is what I did with the journal with Lulu, because she basically does take her journal. She wants to beautify it, but at the same time, she's also kind of invading Zoe's space. So that's kind of like what I wanted to do with it. And because me and my sister, we had a little bit of a rough childhood, and the fights that we had, I was like, oh, this would be a really cool book to kind of explore that with. And I wanted to do characters. I wanted to design characters that can be, I wanted to show a diverse, which is what I was going for. And you actually do have my original sketches.
Oh, is this the original? Wow. They look so polished. I wasn't sure if these were like the original sketches, It's so cool to see them though. Oh, did she freeze up? B, I think you might have frozen up. One thing I loved about what she did with these illustrations was I wasn't sure in the part where it says sometimes sisters play too rough. I wasn't sure what she was going to show because, as the author and the illustrator, we never really get to talk because it's always channeled through, the editor and the art director. So I wasn't sure if she was going to actually show them getting into like a physical fight. And I'm actually really glad that she did, because I think it adds to the realism of the story. And I also think a lot of times little girls are portrayed as like sweet and dainty and things like that, and maybe not doing that kind of thing. But of course, we all know that isn't always true. So that was one of my my favorite parts of what she did with the illustration. And I also, when they sent these, so this came to me in February of what was it, 2021, I think. And oh, here she comes. I was just saying, B, that I wasn't sure, because you know how the author and the illustrator never get to talk, right, during the development of the thing. And I was just saying that I wasn't sure if you were going to actually show them getting into a physical fight in this page. Sometimes sisters play too rough, and I was glad that you did, because I felt like we need to show all the all the ups and downs.
I'm back. I'm sorry I dropped out.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I think we're all used to technology flunking out on us at this point.
Yeah, our weather's been pretty bad, so I hope I don't drop out again. But
yeah,
but I did catch you talking about the whole fight scene. So I did want to show that, because me and my sister, we got into physical fights, and some of them were actually pretty hilarious. We didn't do any damage to each other, but I wanted to show the frustration between the characters. So I wanted to, in the final artwork, you, instead of seeing the wall and things like that, you see scribbles whenever they're getting into arguments, and one scribble is pink and the other is blue, and they kind of represent the opposites between them. And I wanted to do little stars, when they're getting into a fight. I would play The Sims, and on the Sims fight, they kind of get a cloud of smoke and stars and little cartoon elements. So I tried to implement that to kind of show to kind of communicate their frustration with each other. like they can't communicate, so all their energy just turns into scribbles as they're just scrambling with each other.
Yeah, I
So
really
those are
liked that
ways that I
effect.
try to communicate. Thank you.
That was great. Maybe I'll even open it up just so I can show that, because I thought that was really cool. Oops, there's my trip to Hawaii. Let me see if I can. I think I might have gotten rid of that
For the
screen.
other one.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna stop sharing for just a sec.
Okay.
And all right. Oh, here we go. Okay, I got it. Yeah, I really liked that effect. And I thought it just really was good at kind of showing their these sort of scribbles that you were talking about, like kind of showing their emotional state, right?
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what I was going for. Because I try to, like, whenever I do a children's book, I try to add like an element in there that's, can be unique to that book. Like, even if it might only appear once, I wanted to kind of like add that character and just try to find different ways to communicate through art that's not always exactly so literal. So in moments like these, I allow myself to have fun. So like I'll add, like in some books, I might add confetti to kind of show excitement. Or like I'll add little speckles and things like that here. And I really like the idea of the scribbles, because usually when I'm drawing and I have like and I feel frustrated, I'll pretty much scribble on the paper, like I don't know what to do. Like I'll just scribble something. And sometimes those little scribbles have a lot of energy to them. And it goes back to like when I learned how to do gestures. And like gestures for artists is when you basically take an image and you just rough it out in like a couple of seconds. And like those couple of seconds, if you get really good at it, you can capture a lot of emotion and a lot of energy in that. And I try to incorporate that like as I move through. And like even with my sketches, if you like with my sketches, they're like really rough, but have color. That's kind of like how I approach everything, is like going into that gesture form. So yeah.
Great. Let me go back to the. So when you were like, I'm going to go back to the sketches for a second here. So how long did it take you to do this sort of rough sketch of the whole book? Because to me, it seems like this would take a really long time.
Well, for me, like if I have a really good book and I get like images in my head right away of what I want to draw when I read it. So putting that onto paper is actually pretty quick for me. Like, as I mentioned, these are basically like really rough gestures. Like I could spend, like I could knock out a page in maybe like an hour or so in drawing it. But like the real challenge actually comes in trying to figure out what actually goes onto the page. So like I would look at the different words. So I would say, they draw, they paint, they rest, they write. So I have to figure out like how I'm going to show these different things in this limited space that I have. So there's like, I would say the drawing part is the easy part, but there's just a lot of problem solving that goes into it, making sure that there's enough space for the words, making sure that the illustrations fit what the words actually say. And like I also try to communicate through the colors that I use. Like I wanted to use really fun, vibrant colors for this, for this book, and like kind of showing just another way to show like how their world is. And like even when it came to like this spread where they're drawing and things like that, I wanted to make the actual drawings more important than the figures. So I would just do a lot of problem solving, but I would say like in general to go through the sketches, depending on what the text is, how complicated it is, it could take me about a week. And that's just like me, giving myself time to think about what I want to go on a page. And like sometimes if I'm not sure about something, I'll leave it open and I'll ask the author or I'll ask the art directors if they have any ideas for a certain spread. And that usually helps a lot. But I think in the case of this book, you had given me like a lot of creative freedom. And for me, that works really well. If you allow me to express myself through my artwork, that works really well. It's good to have direction too, and like have other eyes that look at it. But being able to be free to explore my ideas and see what actually comes out from me helps the process move a lot smoother, I would say.
Nice. And did you use any, like, when you draw characters like this? I mean, the thing that always amazes me about illustrators is that you can have a recognizable character from spread to spread, right? Like, and there's differences between them, and those differences stay consistent. And did you have like any kind of reference that you were using to draw from, or people that you had in mind, or that you had photos of, or maybe that were in your life, or was it just completely from your imagination that the characters came? Or, I mean, I know you said, sorry, go ahead.
Well, in general, I have a catalog of references, but that I could pull from. Like I think in terms of these characters, I had different hairstyles in mind that I wanted to do. But usually when I approach a book, I need to know what the characters look like before I actually go into like the sketches and detailing them out. So like I'll do the character designs, and I think that was the first thing that you had seen was like the drawing of the two girls standing side by side. I think it ended up being like one of the intro pages. So I'll start with that. I'll start with that, and I'll use that as a map to detail the rest of the book. And my process is a lot different. My experience with other artists I've met, my process is a lot different, because what I'll do is I'll do the sketches, and then I'll pull like all the drawings of Zoey, all the drawings of Lulu, and put them in separate like work files for me to draw. It's like, I guess you could say it's like painting all their faces, all the drawings of them on one page instead of an illustration to the next. Because the way that it works for me, like my mind doesn't really work well when it comes to like starting an image, finishing it, and then starting that process all over again. I work better if I just stay in the same stage all the way throughout. So like what I'll do, especially because my style is a little bit more detailed, it takes a bit more work. And if I start something, finish it, and then move on to the next page, it's kind of like I have to rewire my mind on how to draw grounds and how to draw the characters. It's like you kind of forget certain details in between each image, and you can lose consistency. So I'll put everything on one page, or I might make a few pages with all the characters on there. And I'll just spend a day working on all of Zoey's faces. I just want to draw all her facial expressions throughout all those different, throughout all the different pages. And next day I'll work on Lulu's faces. And then the next day I'll work on their hair. And like, I'll just work through all of those different elements. And then next day I'll work on their outfits. And I try to keep in mind, Zoey has polka dots on her pants. Lulu has little hearts on her overalls. The flowers, the patterns, and things like that. And those are like all these little elements that I have to repeat throughout each book, throughout each spread. And I pretty much, like, once I have all the drawings of the characters done, or at least to a state of being done where all those elements are consistent throughout, then I drag and drop them back into the artwork. And then I just work on the background separately. But if I were to do them all together, it would probably be a mess, and it would take me a lot longer. But I call my process the assembly line method, because I basically treat every element like an assembly line to make sure that the consistency is the same throughout the whole book. And that just works best for me, especially as a digital painter. I have the luxury to kind of do that. Whereas if I was a traditional painter, I don't have that. I'm pretty much stuck with, keeping everything in the same, like just going through each image at the same time, like independently, I meant. But yeah, that's usually how I go about it.
So what program are you actually using to draw with then, if it's all digital?
Yes, I use Adobe Photoshop, and I have a series of brushes that I use. I love pastel brushes and a little bit of oil. So I mix a lot of different digital brushes that I use, and I paint directly on my computer. So I use a Surface Pro. So it's the closest to like natural drawing for me, and I can kind of move the screen around and zoom in and zoom out. But I actually got into digital painting because I couldn't afford art supplies. My mom's a single mom. She worked really hard, but like we didn't have access to a lot of, resources like that. We did have a computer though, because she always worked on the computer, and we had a printer and a scanner. So like I would start by like doing little sketches on line paper, scanning them in, and then trying to fill in color on like MS Paint or something like that. So I started off doing digital like really young, and as technology changed, and then we started getting tablets and other ways to paint on the computer, I just kept up with the technology. So like a lot of this is like second nature to me, but like at the time when I started, it actually wasn't considered a legitimate art form. So like I almost got disqualified from a few contests because they didn't think it was real art. So,
Wow.
but I've learned to use my resources and like everything that's available to me, and just try to be really resourceful with what I have in order to produce art. So like my style, my process has just evolved over time into what it is.
Amazing. I don't know that I've heard of um, a lot of book illustrators that illustrate in Photoshop only. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they might use another program and bring it into Photoshop to do some things at the end, or draw on paper and then bring it into Photoshop to make some changes at the end. But like Photoshop start to finish, that's really, really amazing. What an amazing process.
Yeah, I don't touch regular paper at all.
Yeah.
So I try to mimic, because I know like watercolor style is very popular with children's books. So I'm trying to mimic that through digital.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a process. So you kind of see a little bit of it in there. I'm still learning though, and trying to get like the best brush sets that kind of add that texture and stuff. So, but like my style is still evolving and still changing, just depending on what it is that I feel that I'm like illustrating, and like what style best communicates, I think, the story for the book.
Right.
But yeah.
Have you tried a Procreate at all?
I have not. I've been kind of limited to Windows.
Oh, okay.
It's like all my stuff is on Windows, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like would have to be like learning something all over again. But I do really love the textures, and like Procreate is a really awesome medium, and I think it competes with Photoshop in a lot of really unique ways. Like it's able to get a lot of realistic natural textures in there that's really hard to mimic in Photoshop, at least for me anyway.
Yeah. I just flipped to this page because I wanted to share with everyone the one alternate ending to the story where they came home with twins. And there was another one where we thought, because the last line of the story is sometimes sisters have, and then it's like you turn the page and it says another. So another option was a brother, which I think Ellison Cohen, the editor, who was amazing through the whole process, was like, what about if it's a brother? And I was like, no, it's got to be a sister. Sorry. that's my little homage to my two sisters. But there's the shadow little boy that got landed on the cutting room floor. Hannah said she was expecting a brother. Yes. That would be a good twist ending, but that is not the ending. I think we're probably ready to take some questions at this point. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's see. I don't know if oh, I did want to end before we go to questions. First of all, I wanted to thank Allison Cohen and everybody at Running Press Kids who did such an amazing job with this book. It was really a joy to like watch it. You know, as the author, you know, you write, you send it off, and then you kind of get to sit back and watch a little bit, and that's always a really fun process. And seeing these illustrations come back and forth was really cool. But I also wanted to invite everyone in the audience in the chat so that we can, I know we talked about like, you know, things that you've fought with your siblings about, but I also wanted to ask you to type into the chat maybe something that you and your sibling or siblings agree on, something that you or something that you enjoy, that you both enjoy, or that you like to do together. So that would be nice to hear in the chat, and then we'll go to some Q&A.
Yes, yeah.
All right. And yeah, so we'll start answering questions shortly. In the meantime, I'm going
ice cream. Sorry. My brother-in-law said ice cream, which is very on brand for their family.
Yeah.
Miranda and her brother agree on video games. Yes, dessert. I think we all agree on dessert. My niece Bridget says they agree to respect their mother's wishes. Really, Bridget? That's a good answer. A beach day with your sister. Yes, I could use a beach day with my sisters. That would be very nice. Stella says, my other niece says she does not agree with the fact that they follow their mother's wishes. Okay, Stella. I believe you. Okay, so yeah, let's maybe head to some Q&A if there's some questions.
And first I'm just gonna drop a couple of links in the chat. First is going to be a link to buy the book. We do ship within the US, so anywhere in the country. And then I'm also going to put in a link for the events page for, you know, if anybody wants to look at some of the other things we have going on in the near future. And now let's open it up to the Q&A. Okay, so Carol asks, Carrie, did you write illo notes for the pens? Your words just say grab the rest.
Yes, I think I did write a note for that because it's not clear. Yeah. I mean, often in a picture book, and especially when I'm writing in rhyme, because the words are really limited. So I think about what can I leave to the illustrations that I can talk about in the text, but it's actually not clear unless you have the illustration, you know, what it is that you're talking about. So sometimes I will put in an illustration note for a situation like that. Other than that, I usually try not to put in any illustration notes, or very few, just because I want the illustrator to like have their own sort of interpretation. But if it's really essential to the plot of the story, then, you know, then I have to usually say something. So.
Okay.
Good question.
Next, Maria asks, Bridget would love to know if the baby has a name.
I was wondering if anybody has ideas for the baby's name. So if you have an idea, you can type it into the chat or you can tell me later. I was actually very recently thinking about maybe writing a sequel to this book. I don't know if that would ever happen, but if I do, then the baby needs a name. So, we'll have to think of something.
Okay.
Bea, do you have any suggestions about a name for that little baby?
No, not right away.
Stella suggests Maya. Miranda. Miranda. Maya. I like Maya. That's very cute.
It would fit both sisters have a 4-letter name.
Right. Yes. I often box myself into a corner when I'm writing in rhyme. I don't know why I do this all the time, but so originally the text they didn't have names. It just said sometimes sisters, blah, blah, blah. So I'm writing along and it's the meter's all set, right? And then I'm suddenly like, I need to name these people. But now I have to pick names that fit within the sort of the meter that's already been established, right? So it ends up sort of limiting the names quite a bit. So I had to kind of come up with names that were 2 syllables, right? Like sister. So Lulu, Zoey. That's why they have those names.
That's a great explanation. I love that.
Yeah. It would be better if I just decided from the beginning that they were going to have names, and then I'd have a little more flexibility, but.
All right. And Maria also asked the next question, which is she would like to know how old the sisters are.
That's a good question. Bea, how old did you think they were? I thought that Zoey she's the older one, and she's like old enough to write, so I'm thinking she's probably about 7 and that Lulu's maybe like 4. Was that, Bea, when you were drawing them, was that what you were thinking, or?
I was thinking they might have been a little bit older. I was thinking maybe Lulu might have been like 6 and maybe Zoey was like maybe 11, I would say.
Okay. Yeah.
She's a little on the taller side.
She does she also has a stylish look about her that's a little closer to a tween, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. So you kind of have the 2 age groups.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Julie asks the next question. She says, overall, does Brittany tend to spend more time on the dummy or the final artwork?
I spend more time on the final artwork, I would say. The dummy or the sketches, I usually can complete those within a week, maybe 2, depending on how complicated it is. And then actually figuring out the final artwork, that's the part that takes a couple of months.
Great. And then Erica asks, what's your favorite part of the book? And then dash Miranda.
That's a good question. I think my favorite, well, I love the ending. I just think it's sweet when they, the baby comes home and they're all together. So I really like that part. But I also, as I was saying before, I really like this scene that shows their fight with the like scribbles in the background and things like that. That was when I saw that spread, I was like, oh, this is really great. How it turned out. So, Bea, did you have a favorite part?
Oops, I mute myself. A favorite part of the book, you say?
Yeah.
I really like doing the final illustration. I love drawing the baby.
Yeah, the baby is fun.
The baby in the overalls. I thought that was really fun. And then they were all together, and so I would say that and the scribbles were really fun for me. That was, I was able to let loose a little bit.
Great. And then I have a question from Ruth, who asks, Carrie, when you're coming up with a book idea, do you think in rhymes, or does the story come first, the rhyme after?
That's a good question. So I don't know if I can separate the idea from the language of the story. A lot of times, uh, some opening lines or a refrain or something like that will kind of pop into my head. And then that's how I start writing. I need that little kernel to start writing from. And also I often think that like that often is the thing that stays in the story the longest. And then the moment when I realize I have to get rid of that original line or whatever it was, change it, is when I know I've like revised it enough, right? Is when that sort of original seed has to be cast off. But you know, a lot of times when you write in rhyme, like you hear the advice, someone will say, well, you should write your story in prose and see if it works as a story, and then you know you can put it back into rhyme and stuff. And that, like, I literally have never done that, and it never works for me because I feel like the language of the story is like so essential to it that it wouldn't be the same story without it. I just don't think it would work for me. I don't know.
Okay.
It might work for other people, but I've never tried that, and I just don't see how I could.
Fair enough. Would anybody else like to ask any questions? Do you have any questions for people in the chat besides the sibling scenario?
No, that was fun to hear. And you know, I'm liking all these name suggestions they have for me. 2 syllables: Bonnie, Bitsy, Bella. Bella is like, yeah, that's a good one.
Absolutely.
I'll have to think about what that little baby could be named and what she might get up to. I also noticed that my sister Carly, who's here, her actual name fits in that fits that 2-syllable parameter. So maybe we'll just name the baby Carly.
Okay, actually, we do have another question now from Josh. He asks, what else are you working on now? What's coming out next from Carrie and B?
Oh, good question. Well, from me, I actually have another book coming out this summer in July, which is called Hurry, Little Tortoise, Time for School. It was illustrated by Erin Cron. She does these really cool like woodcut illustrations. So B, this is like completely the opposite of you, because I don't know how she does it. She literally carves blocks of wood and then like prints with them, you know, to make all these illustrations. But so this is about a little tortoise who has ambitions to be on time to school, and maybe even the first one to school for a change. And when I've shown kids this cover in school visits, I always ask them, do you think a tortoise would be good at getting to school on time? And they say, no. She is not. But this one also has a little surprise twist at the end that is fun. And so this is coming out July 19th. And then I'm still writing, so I'm working on other stuff and sending things out, and you know, we'll see what comes next.
Fantastic, and congratulations on publishing this book and on the next book that's coming out.
Yes, very close together.
Julie asks, do you have illustrators, authors, books which were your favorites as kids?
Good question. I have actually some of my favorites right back here. You can grab them. Sorry. So I loved, this is one book that I really loved as a kid called What Do People Do All Day by Richard Scarry. I really loved looking at these like really detailed illustrations. I liked Robert McCloskey stories. So I read One Morning in Maine. This was one of my favorites growing up. Maurice Sendak's books, I really liked those. The Frances books were another one that I liked. And I'm trying to think what else. I feel like I had some other ones. Oh, Mike Mulligan and his Steam Shovel. That was one of my favorites growing up. So, how about you?
Yes, I do have a favorite. I actually have my books next to my desk because I actually collect art. I actually collect children's books to learn from them. And my favorite is from Kadir Nelson. It's actually blurring it out. My thing is.
Oh, there we go.
Out. There it goes. So it's from Kadir Nelson, dancing in the sky, dancing in the wings. I'm sorry. And it's I really love his art style. I became a fan of his artwork. I actually collect children's books more for the art. I don't really read as much because I try to get the story just by the images alone. And that's kind of like how I learn to communicate through artwork a lot. It's just if I could get what the story is about without reading it, that's usually really strong for me. So Kadir Nelson is the one who inspires me, and outside of him, I would say it is Norman Rockwell. It's one of my other favorite artists. I follow his artwork because the way that I look at his pieces is like they're little stories of themselves. Like Norman Rockwell is really great at capturing moments in time, and like I can look at an image and the whole story kind of appears in my mind. So it's just like the context in which it shows up for me or how I would answer it is based off of my favorite images.
Have you been to the Norman Rockwell Museum?
I have not. I would love to go. I would love to
me
see
too. I think it's in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, but I haven't had a chance to go yet, but it's a place that I'd love to visit sometime.
Oh, I
haven't done much traveling.
Okay, and then we have another question from Vivian who says, so excited for Tortoise. And does Brittany have any other projects she is working on? Perhaps she answered this and I missed it.
I actually do have quite a few projects that I'm working on. I haven't been able to update my social media because I've been busy working on them for the past year. But I have probably about 4 books that are going to be coming out soon. Not sure if all of them have been announced, but one is with Marvel. It's a children's book. I have another book. I have a few books that I'm working on right now that are dealing with figures in the civil rights movement. One of them is Bayard Rustin, and another one is about the bus boycotts, which I'm not sure if that one has been announced yet. But I started taking on some more historical ones because I really love stories that either are fantasy or deal with emotional connections with people, or ones that are historical in some sense. Because it's my way to kind of access information that I might not have been privy to without being introduced to it. So that's what's coming up, but I don't have the names for them just yet. But you'll be seeing some more of my stuff coming out soon.
Great. Let's see.
Oh, Vivian, that sounds great. Vivian saying in the chat there's an exhibit at the Portsmouth Historical Society on the power of picture books with Virginia Lee Burton and illustrators like that. I loved her books too. Sorry.
Oh no, wow, that's really cool.
I know.
Have to run to
drive
Portsmouth.
up there, right?
Well, I think we're ready to wrap it up. Thank you to the both of you for a wonderful chat. It's been a delight to hear the story and to find out about both of your creative processes. And thank you to everybody in the chat who's joined us this evening. And yeah, just thank you, a big thank you to everybody, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much for hosting this. I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to also thank everyone for coming. It was so nice to hear from you in the chat, and especially my sisters who came. I love you guys, and I'm dedicating this one to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Oh, wait. Oh, okay.